Don't give Trump a reason, New York City. He wants a reason to bring in the hammer, just like in Minneapolis. And the people in Minneapolis can be our guide. Trump wants a reason to send in the hammer, especially in New York. Don't give him a reason. Welcome to Independent Americans. Welcome to episode 546. I am your host, Paul Rieckhoff, and it is Wednesday, June 10th. And if it's Wednesday around here, that means it's Whiskey Tango Foxtrot Wednesday, or for those that don't know, What the Fuck Wednesday.
What the fuck Wednesday? What the fuck Wednesday?
Because every Wednesday, we got something to say what the fuck about. We have that pretty much every day, but especially on Wednesdays. And today is the night of Game 4 of the NBA Finals here in New York City, the Knicks versus the Spurs. And there's a lot around it that's much bigger than basketball that gives us reason to say, what the fuck? More on that in a second. I am coming to you from New York City, the mecca of basketball, and lately, the mecca of controversy, where the weather is getting hotter. It's hot, and it's getting hotter fast. We might have over 90 degrees. We might have thunderstorms. And New York is going to be in the epicenter of all of it, not just today, not just during the finals, but I think throughout this summer. And today's artist is Wu-Tang Clan. Why? Because Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to fuck with, but also because tonight they are the halftime show at Madison Square Garden. Big surprise. Folks are excited following their massively successful hometown stop at MSG during the Wu-Tang Forever Final Chapter Farewell Tour. Wu-Tang is the voice of righteous anger, an iconic voice of righteous anger. And they're going to bring that tonight. It's going to be a contrast to Trump's appearance last time, but it's going to be very, very important. And I'm going to take you through that and much more as I bring you the Five Eyes, our starting five, to bring you through the finals and this wild and weird summer. I will bring you the Five Eyes: independence, integrity, information, inspiration, and impact. No guest, just today, a bit of a warning, a bit of an alarm, and a bit of righteous anger. Because if you're not angry, you're not paying attention, especially now. And we got to stay vigilant.
Stay vigilant. Stay vigilant.
All right. There's something I got to speak on. As Draymond Green would say, there's something I got to speak on. Tonight is Game 4. All eyes are in New York City, but there's something important that I think we all need to pause to think about. And it's my top topic. We could be entering a summer of violence, unprecedented violence. Now, in the headlines over the last couple of days has been a series of attacks where some young men jumped a Spurs fan, beat him up. Absolutely unacceptable, violent, criminal behavior. Young men swarming on Spurs fans somewhere in New York City. Now it's become a source of all kinds of outrage, understandably, because there is no place for violence. But right-wingers are attacking Mamdani. Mamdani is pushing back. Trump is watching all over it. And here's what I think is important. There is violence in New York City. I don't think it overtakes the city. I think it is an issue and something that politicians have to focus on. But it's not a lawless, wild place like you might think it is if you watch Fox News. But there is crime across America, and people are concerned. But what's happening in New York City and what will happen in New York City is a harbinger of what could happen across America this summer. Because there's something brewing in this country. Young men, especially, are angry. A lot of folks in this country are angry. A lot of folks feel like they're getting a raw deal. But when young men are angry, and young men are in the streets, and young men don't have leadership, and young men don't have focus, bad things can happen. We've seen that in this country. We've seen this around the world. Now, good things can happen too. But this violence in New York is something that's bubbling up. And I want to say something especially to the young men of New York. The young men that I see out in the streets that are going to be on the subways, a lot of them, most of them are there to celebrate, to be a part of this. Don't give Trump a reason, New York City. He wants a reason to bring in the hammer, just like in Minneapolis. And the people in Minneapolis can be our guide. Trump wants a reason to send in the hammer, especially in New York. Don't give him a reason. But understand, at the same time, I coach football. I have young men. I mentor young men. I've worked with leaders across this city and across this country. And there's something very, very important happening that doesn't get talked about enough. There are many angry, disconnected, jobless, hopeless, purposeless, missionless young men across New York City. But not just New York City, all across America and in many parts of the developing world. They have no certainty. They're graduating from high school or college, and they don't have jobs. They don't know if they're going to be able to afford a home. And they feel like the system is rigged, because it is. And they know AI is coming for them in their jobs. They know that forever war is a constant. They know that Trump is talking about the draft. They're scared, and they're angry, and they're kind of a powder keg. And if Trump sends in ICE, which he has promised to do, or even the military, here in New York City or in other parts across this country, we could be in for a violent summer. Let's talk about New York. There's a game tonight in Madison Square Garden here in New York City. We've got the NBA Finals. No matter what happens with the Knicks, there will be lots of young men, especially in the streets. And this will be true in San Antonio to some extent too. But if they win, if the Knicks win, there will be thousands of people in the streets. And if they lose, there will probably be thousands of people in the streets. But if they do win, then there will be a parade, and there will be thousands of young men in the streets. And don't forget, the World Cup starts in America and around the region starting tomorrow. Primary day in New York City is coming up on June 23rd. And the left-wing Democratic Socialists will probably win, and they might win big. And we could be seeing Mamdani 2.0. You're seeing that already among the left of center and far left of center outrage, uprising within the left wing of the Democratic Party and in Graham Plettner last night in Maine. You will see the same thing in primaries across the summer. More and more far left and far right people winning in primary elections. And there will be, of course, elections this fall. And then there's Cuba, which I'll talk more about in a second, and the increased pressure on Trump. Trump is desperate. Trump has said he does not want free and fair elections. He said that he wants a reason to send in troops in New York and Chicago. He's mentioned those two cities by name. Steve Bannon has said that the ICE folks at the airports are just practicing for what they could do at the elections this fall. Trump is increasingly under fire. He is increasingly desperate. That makes him increasingly dangerous. And what we're seeing across this country, with the potential for protests this summer, with the potential for ICE raids this summer, with the potential for lots of young men and women who are out in the streets because the weather is better, there's no school, and there are less jobs. Leadership will be so essential. Trump's not going to provide it. We have to provide it. To the young men, especially who are listening to me, to people who know young men, you have to be vigilant. You have to be the sheepdogs. You have to protect others. You have to look for ways and reasons to be positive. And you have to turn down the violence. No matter what happens, do not turn the heat up. Try to turn it down. Otherwise, we're giving Trump exactly what he wants, which could be the invocation of the Insurrection Act. If not in New York, maybe in Chicago, maybe somewhere else. But remember, when you're out there celebrating, or you're out there protesting, or you're just out there around it and observing, Trump wants a reason to dial it up, and we can't give it to him. So there are angry young men, and that's understandable. If you're not angry, you're not paying attention. But we have to turn that righteous anger into positive impact. We have to look out for each other. We have to look for the helpers. We have to watch this space and talk about these issues. Try to stick together when we can, stay peaceful, and most of all, stay vigilant. Independent Americans, as you know, The primaries are taking shape. 2026 is unfolding. This show is at the middle of it. I'm helping you stay ahead of it. And you can trade on the biggest political races happening all across America on Kalshi. On Kalshi, you can trade major primaries, election outcomes, and the biggest political storylines as they happen. You can trade on pretty much everything you hear about in this show. In its primary season this week, we have Maine, Nevada, South Carolina, North Dakota. On June 23rd, we will have the New York primary, and this will be in the richest district in America. This is the one that has Jack Schlossberg, Mika Lasher, George Conway, the former Republican. So you can bet on these things. You can bet on these primary races. Will Jack Schlossberg, the heir to the Kennedy legacy, win the New York 12 primary race? Or will George Conway? Right now, Conway is trading at 1%, meaning a $100 trade would pay out $2,950.10 if he wins his election. There's a lot of other really important, timely, and cool political stuff you can bet on. The Senate elections are obviously a very big deal. And there is a question of who will win, not just in Maine, but also in Texas. Will Tallarico beat Ken Paxton in Texas? Right now, Tallarico is currently trading at 42%, meaning a $100 trade would pay out $228.78 if he wins that election. The Texas Senate race is one of many that you can focus on. We've talked about whether Pete Hegseth will last as Secretary of Defense. Will the Strait of Hormuz stay open? You can wager on that one. And then there's also a big one that I may come back to from time to time. Right now, you can bet on who will be the 2028 Democratic and Republican presidential nominee. Right now, Gavin Newsom is leading at 21%. You can wager on an AOC, John Ossoff, Kamala Harris, Rahm Emanuel, Josh Shapiro. You can go down to Mark Kelly or Ro Khanna, or our friend Wes Moore, who's been on this show before. Wes Moore is trading at 2.6%, which means if you bet $100 now on Wes Moore and he wins, you will win $3,638. That's the max payout on November 7th. You can also put money on James Tallarico or Alyssa Slotkin or Mark Cuban or Jon Stewart. You can place your bets now at Kalshi. And we talked about some other things that you can wager on. You can talk about whether or not Trump will attend another finals game. There was a 60% chance last week that Trump would attend an NBA finals game. If you put down $100, you paid out $159.57. And let's bring a new one to you, what I think is a fun one. It's related to technology and science, but also to politics. Will the U.S. confirm that aliens exist? This is definitely a topic of conversation in the White House. It comes up in the news from time to time. Trump loves to talk about it. Will the U.S. confirm that aliens exist before 2027? If you vote yes, it's trading at 13.9%, which means if you wager $100, you will pay out $675.08. This is all the stuff that you can focus on Kalshi, where politics is available for your focus every single day. On Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use the code INDEPENDENT to get $10 when you trade 10. That is independent, Kalshi, Kalshi, where you can trade on anything, including politics and all the latest from our news headlines. It is fun. And if you watch or listen to this show, you will stay ahead of the curve. 18 and over only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Even contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see Kalshi.com/regulatory. Independent Americans, you can get in on the action right now at Kalshi. All right, I had to get that off my chest. Now, let's go to something that's also a bit outrageous and has to do with violence that's below the radar. All right, the most important story in the world that's related to what I just talked about is still that Donald Trump can do anything he wants with the most powerful military the world has ever seen, and nothing is stopping him. That includes taking over the Western Hemisphere, which he's talked about doing. And Pete Hegseth is doing, especially today, Hegsethian things. Play that song, Chris.
Hegseth. Dum 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 dum. Hegseth.
I would love the Wu-Tang to cover that. But today, Hegseth is in Guantanamo Bay, which is at Cuba, right? It's right next to Cuba. Why is that important? Well, I'll talk about that in a second. Who's traveling with him? Radical shitstorm creator, conspiracy pusher, Laura Loomer, who should not have a security clearance, but is traveling alongside the secretary, and she's posting updates. Now, she's also pushed 9/11 conspiracies, and I think that that alone should be disqualifying. Shouldn't have her anywhere near the president or the secretary of defense. But she's the kind of radical person that is in the orbit of our secretary of defense, or who I call the acting secretary of culture war.
Hey everybody, it is 4:30 in the morning and I am getting ready to take off with Secretary of War Pete Hegseth for a day at Guantanamo Bay. Be sure you're following me on X at Laura Loomer and on X at Loomer Unleashed for exclusive updates and reports.
So Laura Loomer's with him. Why? Because they want to communicate their propaganda. The Washington Post isn't riding along. The New York Times isn't riding along. Even Fox News isn't riding along. Laura Loomer is. Why? Because Cuba's next. And they're not even trying to hide it. They're putting it out there. They're telling you what they're going to do. Play the clip, please, Chris.
What happens with the future of Cuba is in the hands of the President of the United States and the leadership of Cuba. No matter what, the Department of War is going to be prepared and postured for any possible contingency. We're here to talk about that today and then do a little PT. How's that sound?
Now, this is Hegseth in workout gear, because apparently everything looks like CrossFit now at the Pentagon. But he's out there working out, and most importantly, he's telegraphing their punches. They always telegraph their punches. Cuba is next. And Congress won't even vote on it until after it happens, just like on Venezuela and on Iran. They do War Powers Act votes after the war has already started, and they can't stop it. Cuba is next. They're telling you it's next. They're moving the pieces. They're communicating the message. They're just waiting for the opportunity. So don't be surprised if in the middle of the NBA Finals, you wake up to strikes in Cuba or some kind of military operation in Cuba that is unauthorized, that is unapproved, that is unpopular, and probably unconstitutional. Because the most important story in the world is that Donald Trump can do anything he wants with the most powerful military the world has ever seen. From Cuba to New York City, to Venezuela, to Iran, to Chicago, to your town. And nothing is stopping him. So stay vigilant. All right. Meanwhile, CENTCOM continues to strike inside Iran in response to what they say. They say in response to the downing of an Apache helicopter, which was hit by an Iranian drone. I talked about that yesterday. But here's the important part. Trump's forever war continues because it never ended. I said the most important story in the world is that Trump can do anything he wants and nothing is stopping him. And that includes Iran. The recent War Powers Act vote on Iran is just another example of them closing the barn door after the horse is gone. And this horse continues to run wild all around the Middle East. And Cuba is next, so stay vigilant. All right, ICE continues to run rampant. We will keep an eye on that, especially now that the funding has been approved. National Guard deployments may change over the summer. Watch out for those, especially around the World Cup. Trump is all gas, no brakes. Nothing is slowing him down. Meanwhile, he's still waging war on the free press and against your health and trying to take over the Western Hemisphere. But last night was a primary. Another example, primaries in 4 states, another example of how independents have been closed out in elections across the country. We will continue to keep you updated and try to go under the hood and help you understand the primaries in a way that the mainstream media especially just doesn't even touch. But the top news, Hilton has beaten Steyer to win the 2nd spot in the California governor's race. That means Steve Hilton, a Republican endorsed by Trump, will face off against Javier Becerra, a Democrat. In the general election, Tom Steyer, the billionaire, will not advance. He has supported Becerra, but this will be another lightning rod. You will have a Trump-endorsed Republican against a Democrat in a big city that Trump wants to send ICE into and has been sending ICE into. Watch this space. Meanwhile, Graham Plattner won in Maine, not surprising, as he will face Susan Collins, a 5-term Republican, in maybe the biggest Senate race in the country. Plattner won handily in what is increasingly a partisan primary Democrat election. This doesn't mean it's what the general election looks like. And I will argue that Plattner is too far left. He's got too many issues. He's got the Nazi tattoo and all this other stuff. And Maine, in general, tends to be more moderate. So I don't know if they're ready to elect a Democrat. We will see. But another far left Democrat has won, setting up another clash. And I think what you need to see is that far left and far right people are dominating another rigged primary day. Just see how yesterday's primary was rigged by the parties and how, again, hundreds of thousands of independent voters were disenfranchised, just like every primary day. Next week, it continues in Alabama, Washington, D.C., Georgia, and Oklahoma, America. And our democracy is better when independents have an equal power in our elections, and they need to let us vote. And we need to stay vigilant. Now, that includes open primaries, where New York City will also be a battleground. Last night, way below the radar, way below the radar. There was another COGE hearing, what Mamdani is called COGE, in contrast to DOGE. He's calling it a Commission on Government Efficiency. City and State was one of the only folks to cover this. Shahali Donaldson wrote a piece that said that more than 100 people showed up for the first public hearing held by Mamdani's Charter Revision Commission in Lower Manhattan on Tuesday night. The mayor has created a 15-member commission on government efficiency, tasked with crafting a series of proposals to advance onto the November ballot. While the 3-hour hearings theme technically centered on improving government for infrastructure projects and public realm improvements, the public testimony featured a wide range of topics, including improving outdoor dining application processes, amending contract procedures, speeding street improvements, and strengthening city ethics committees. And the most popular idea of the night was open primaries. About a dozen people testified in favor of opening up the city's elections so people of any party can vote in a single city primary. We've been talking about this. New York City is ground zero for this fight. It's an idea that's come up frequently before. Last year, the Charter Revision Commission, convened by former Mayor Eric Adams, crafted a ballot question proposing an open primary system, though members ultimately killed it to focus on land use reforms instead. Now, it was killed by the progressive Democrats. It was killed by the Democratic Socialists. It was killed by Brad Lander, who's now running for Congress, who's a part of the Mamdani coalition. This is not a conspiracy. This is a group of people who are running the game. And you got to respect the game. And what they want to do is slam the door behind them to assure that no one else can get on the field. Mamdani has ordered the disbanding of this group that's been called zombie-like, but the commission continues to barrel forward. It will likely come to a head in court with Randy Mastro, Adams' first deputy mayor, leading the charge. I will support him in that charge. Open primaries will support him in that charge. Many of our other friends across the democracy reform movement will support that charge because overwhelmingly, open primaries are supported by New York City independents, and especially independent veterans, and by all New Yorkers, because it's what we see across the country. We're tired of being blocked from being able to fairly vote in a country and a city that we serve to defend. Now, this is different than what Trump is saying. Nobody's cheating, but the system is rigged, which means it's constructed in someone's favor. The New York City system is rigged, and Brad Lander and other partisans want to keep it that way. I invite Brad Lander to come on this show. I invite Randy Maestro to come on this show. I invite Mamdani or even Eric Adams to come on the show to talk about this issue because it's very, very important to our democracy. New York City is the beachhead for the clash between the far left and the moderates and the far right. And the moderates, the middle, the independents, the none of the above are actually the majority. We are the plurality for sure, and we are the future. And we're fighting back. And we know that the city, the country, and history will be on our side. So stay focused on it and stay vigilant.
Hi, I'm Andrew Yang. Let's talk about something I know you'll love, math. Because the numbers aren't adding up. Let me break it down. The average monthly phone bill is over $80 a month, and most of that bill is for data. But here's the thing, the average person doesn't even use 60% of that data. That means you are massively overpaying for data you do not need. That's the data tax.
The data tax.
What if your phone plan actually paid you to use it less? We said enough with the data tax, so we built Noble, a mobile carrier that finally works for you. Our simple unlimited plan, $50 a month. No hidden fees, no games, just pay for what you need. And here's the kicker, when you use less data, you get money back.
Oh, yeah.
Noble doesn't just lower your bill, it flips the whole model. Finally, a phone plan that rewards you for living your life, not scrolling through it. Because life happens out there in the real world, not in your feed.
All right, independent candidates are continuing to lead the way. I'll have more of those for you in the days to come. We're not just moving the needle, we are the needle. We are the people's champions. And when you have a level playing field in a place like California, you see what happens. You might not like the result, but that's democracy, where you actually have a Republican facing off against a Democrat. If you didn't have open primaries, you wouldn't have that. You'd have what you see in the South, where you only have Republicans and you only have Democrats in blue states. But this is the future, and it is unfolding before our eyes. This is the political fight happening while Trump's forever war continues around the globe. All right, let's talk sports for a second. If you haven't seen, Trump and Stephen A. Smith are in a battle. Trump is now calling Stephen A. Smith dumb as a rock, a low IQ individual, an arrogant fool. I mentioned Stephen A. Smith because I've invited him to come on the show because he might run for president, probably as a Democrat, maybe as an independent, but watch this space and stay vigilant. All right, finally, this is a quick fire episode. I will be on Conor McShane's show on News Nation later today. I will be on other shows later in this week, but I want to bring you back to something good.
Something good, oh, something sweet.
The NBA has said that Game 2 of the NBA Finals was watched by 43.6% of New York households with TV, making it the most watched Knicks game ever. I think that's something good because I think it reflects the interest across the country. And it's important because it was on broadcast TV. People could watch it here on ABC, and that's important. It wasn't behind a paywall at Paramount like a UFC fight. It wasn't behind a paywall like Netflix. It's still on broadcast television. And thankfully, we still have inside the NBA, Shaq, and that great crew of guys that I wish would all run for office as independents, but it's something good. And I still got one other thing. We've been focused on New York a lot. We focus on music a lot. This morning in New York City officially co-named West 8th Street as Jimi Hendrix Way, in honor of Jimi Hendrix, marking the storied block where his Electric Ladyland Studios still stands, one of the most historic and continuously operating recording studios in the city. The street naming was led by New York City District 2 Council member Harvey Epstein, spearheaded by Experience Hendrix LLC, the family-owned company led by Jimi Hendrix, along with guitarist and writer Jeff Slate. Public kickoff happened today. Stevie Van Zandt was there. Jimi Hendrix was there. Vernon Reed from Living Color, Eddie Kramer, Valerie Simpson, Felicia Collins, Jeff Slate, Jeff Anthony, and others. I just want to celebrate that. We need more Jimmy more than ever. We need more history more than ever. Because in a time like this, we're all along the watchtower. And we all need to stay vigilant. All right, if you're not angry, you're not paying attention, that's the deal. This is the show. Check me out on News Nation, on MSNBC. Go to our YouTube page. Go to independentamericans.us. Get some gear. Support our sponsors, Kalshi, and, of course, Noble Mobile. If you're among the 45% of Americans who are pissed off, this is your show. Share this show with a pissed off young man. It used to be called Angry Americans. If you're not angry, you're not paying attention. But it's bigger than that now, but the anger still exists. And our independent movement is the positive alternative. It's hope for the future. You are welcome here. Join us. Stay out of the fist fights. Stay out of the extremist groups. Stay out of the partisan far right and far left. And join us. Country over party, people over politics, light over heat, challenging the status quo. And our movement is growing. And we will meet this moment. We will meet this moment this summer, especially, and bring hope that is the oxygen of democracy. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it far and wide. Invite others to declare their independence, whether Knicks fans, Spurs fans, Plattner haters, I don't care. They're all welcome here. Invite others to declare their independence and to stay vigilant. I will take you below the radar to issues you need to know about that the rest of the media just won't touch, because eternal vigilance is the price of freedom. And no, you're not alone in your vigilance. We're all vigilant, and we're all in this together, especially tonight here in New York and around the country for the World Cup and throughout what could be a violent summer. But let's contrast it. Let's make it a summer of unity. Let's make it a summer of courage. Let's make it a summer of vigilance. I'm your host, Paul Rieckhoff. Thank you for tuning into Independent Americans. I will see you tomorrow. Happy What the Fuck Wednesday. Go Knicks. Stay safe and stay vigilant, America. Stay vigilant.
Archipelago, he tells me the left and right are dreams for those without a clue. And when you wake, it's time to grow. And it's not cool to believe in school, but if I can say one thing, I've seen the children of the revolution and the good trouble they can bring. He says the red and blue identity, independent is an attitude. An island in the sea of rhetoric and archipelago, he tells me the left and right are dreams for those without a clue. And when you wake, it's time to grow.
Powered by Righteous Media.